Hey there, awesome souls. Welcome to Forever Worthy Podcast. This is our sacred time to come together and share our personal life stories and have the opportunity to connect with other women and feel inspired. And who am I? Well, I'm your host, Chardonnay Hooker. I have been on a healing love mission for women for years. You could say it's been my calling since early childhood. And I can't forget how I used to live in my own little magical world, singing and dancing. It was my own escape from childhood trauma. I have memories at age 3 being drawn to the energy of women. I could feel when their hearts were sad, and I would randomly run up to them and hug them so tightly and tell them that they were special. You could say I was born an old soul. As I got older, my passion grew for my love of dancing, and I deeply desired to help guide women to learn self-love, celebrate life, and know their value. That is when I decided to open up a dance studio, where I created a dance program teaching women how to feel sexy and empowered. It was such an honor to witness my precious students release and heal from emotional turmoil through the art of dancing, where they had a safe place amongst other supportive women to tap into their goddess expressions and softly fall in love with themselves and learn their sultry freedom dance. During the season, I also dedicated my time to get plugged in as a guest speaker at women empowerment venues anywhere and everywhere I possibly could. So here I am now, finally living out my dream of having a podcast. This is where we're going to take a journey to share our life experiences. The world needs to hear our true stories on how our intense contrast has shaped and molded us. This show will have colorful content and brave topics that will awaken our souls and inspiration as we take a journey together for self-discovery. I can't wait to see how this will unfold organically through myself and our amazing panel of women guest speakers. Oh, and if you are still learning to be open-minded or struggle with a little judgment, this will be a perfect show to bring a little zest into your life. And remember, you are forever worthy, all my glowing love. Welcome back to the show. Did you know that 4 million Americans claim alien abduction? And you would be shocked to hear how many of those claim to have hybrid children from those encounters. So many of them have similar stories across the world. Even when I was researching on the web, it was limited to find support groups. But it's never on CBS or Fox News. It kind of makes you wonder why. Well, search no further because we have guest speaker Geraldine Orozco, which is an intuitive pranic healer and a meditation coach with 14 years experience in the holistic arts. She will share her vivid abduction from her bedroom window, where she recounts being taken on aboard a ship in which she meets tall grays that show her 8 hybrid children, along with a sting of intriguing information. Since that time, she has tapped into advanced information about many scientific and spiritual topics. So without further ado, we welcome our forever worthy goddess, Geraldine Orozco. Welcome to the show, Geraldine. I am so pleased to have you on the show today. I cannot believe that I get to do this interview with you face to face, because originally we made plans to do the interview through the Anchor Invite app. It's just super convenient when my guest speakers like you live a distance from me being in Southern California, you Northern California. But something magically happened in my schedule, and last minute I ended up coming up to Northern California. And without really knowing where you practiced your work, I ended up in a hotel not far from you. I think it's pretty cool how the universe gifted this great moment where we are doing the interview face-to-face today.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's an honor to be here.
You have over 14 years experience in the holistic arts. With that being said, can you break a little bit more of that down for us so we can understand all that is involved with your love service work for others?
What I do is something called DNA reprogramming, and it's something that I kind of created in a sense based on my ability to see the multidimensional body, and how I ended up with that ability I will share with you in depth more. We'll get into all of that, but the purpose of my work is to help each human being deconstruct all of the matrix programming, ancestral programming that is basically inherently a part of themselves, encoded in your DNA. And we are basically living through cyclical patterns of trauma, pain, and suffering. And unless we learn and understand how to deprogram those aspects of ourselves, we won't be able to move forward, not just as a human in your experience, in your life, in your work, in your success, your marriage, your children, and everything in your life, but also in the bigger picture as a soul journeying through this human experience, basically. So my job is to shine light on the blockages to help you identify them and understand how to dissolve all of that programming that causes so much trauma, so that you can come into the highest expression of yourself, multidimensionally, in other words.
To truly grasp where you are today with your work, Geraldine, can you take us back and share some pivotal life moments that inspired that path?
Honestly, it's been a really powerful, transformative journey, and I'll kind of take you through a quick little recap of my life. In 2008, I was working in a corporate world in telecom, and I had been traveling to China in import-export business, really just completely in the matrix, to say it simply. My career life was the only thing that was important to me, and then hopefully finding a partner and settling down, that was the only thing that was important to me. And I was in that survival mode constantly. And it wasn't until I started my business, when I quit my job. My job actually got outsourced to China, and I was introduced to the event planning import-export, and I fell in love with it. And I started my business from one day to the next, literally. And when I began to import all the beautiful event planning stuff, I was enamored by this, and I started doing the business. But I started multiple businesses at the time, not just that business. So I was kind of entrepreneuring, surfing the waves of success and failure. So it was a bumpy ride for a couple of years. And then one year, which was one of the toughest years, my partner passed away. And I think that was the moment, the catalyst that really took me into my spiritual practice and spiritual awakening. Because at that point, I started to question absolutely everything. I mean, I had already been going through the roller coasters of life, of success.
Of course.
I've invested so much money. I've lost money, businesses. I've had issues with family, with friends, all kinds of things happened. And my partner passed away. I mean, I was ready. Literally, I was suicidal at that point.
How old were you?
Oh, God, 22, 23, 24, around there.
What an impact at that age.
It was really, because, I had thought that I had been doing everything that I was supposed to do right, based on what the Matrix had taught me, based on what my mother had expected. Father, grandparents, my community, my family, my friends, his family and friends. I mean, I had been molding myself to be this person that was supposed to be the perfect expression of that. And so I was saying, why am I not successful? Why are things not working still? And then this happened. So I started to question everything, and I went down a downward, spiral of depression, really. And I started to seek answers, and I spent a lot of time. I mean, I went to retreats and spiritual lectures and so on and so forth, looking and searching for that answer. And finally, I think at one point when I started, one of the reasons why I started studying healing was because I had thought that if only I had been there for my partner and I had known some ways to help support him heal himself, I would be able to, help him. And he had been battling an addiction with over-the-counter drugs, which is a huge issue in our Bay Area, all over the world, actually. And I mean, there were times where I used to go to his doctor and beg him not to give him the prescription drugs, and he would still do it. And we didn't know that was an issue until it really became an issue, physically and health-wise. And I guess he was detoxing, he was clean, everything was fine. He goes to the doctor gives him something else, and he gets a heart attack, and he passed away overnight. So that was completely unexpected.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a really, really tough year to work through. But what that really showed me was like, if I had known some way to support him on a deeper level, like, would he be able to overcome this addiction? You know, and I started a community outreach program in Oakland to help people that were battling with these over-the-counter prescription drug abuse, because it's a really big issue.
Oh, it is everywhere. You're right. It is
tremendous. But then I started to get into the more of the holistic thing, because I thought, well, you know, we're multidimensional. It's not just the physical thing or the chemicals that we're ingesting in our body. There has to be a reason for the need for this kind of constant stimulation, constant drug use that is occurring in our communities. So I learned about Pranic Energy Healing, and I loved it. I thought it was a wonderful thing. I got certified in that. And then I found quantum energy healing. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I started to do those things, but mostly as a hobby, to learn about it, you know, and I never thought that I would be working at that, because I had my business.
When you say pranic and quantum, does that mean that you're working with energy?
That's right. So we're talking about the meridians of the body, decongesting, heavy accumulation of energy in the body. Okay, and you help it move through the body in order to create a very even and healthy flow of chi, of life force through the body. When we have accumulated energy in the body, that's where illnesses begin. That's where we start to have emotional blockages on every level, because we must understand that we're multidimensional. It's not just the physical body. We're talking about, you know, the energy body, you know, our etheric body, many aspects, and the physical, the cellular body. We are actually a holographic structure, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit when I tell you about how I came to understand that. But, you know, this was my understanding. So from that point, I began to understand that for my own journey, if I really wanted to get results, and if I wanted to even be able to, you know, help anyone, even myself in any way, I needed to embody my own studies, you know, because even as a pranic practitioner, you know, I was still not seeing the results that I thought, I wasn't turning into Buddha anytime soon, you know? So the thing was, what was I missing? And I taught meditation for many years before that already, on the side of my business. And I decided that one day I would apply everything that I had learned in all of these lectures, all of these things, and then I started to see changes. And kind of like 2009 was kind of like the time where I started to do complete deconstruction of myself, really, really deep. And I think what happened is that I cleared so much. I mean, I literally went back, all my relationships, all of my trauma, daddy issues, mommy issues, everything, right? All the way back to the very core of those things. And in 2013 is when I had this life-changing abduction experience. And at this point, I mean, I had no conscious awareness of extraterrestrials. You know, I didn't even consider them as a part of our reality. I mean, I didn't even think about them. I wasn't even into sci-fi or anything like that. So when it happened to me, you know, I was taken out of my bedroom in Union City, California, just right here. And, you know, I was introduced to hybrid children. So that took me on a whole different, you know, I mean, when I met them, it was unbelievable. It was such a powerful exchange of recognition. And I'm not a mother, so I can only begin to feel what it's like to recognize a part of you, you know, this child that is embodying your body, yourself, your eyes, your essence. I don't know how to explain it any other way. But it was mind-blowing. It's really interesting. I mean, and I like to tell you, I mean, I didn't even really believe in aliens before that, okay? I didn't even think about them. So, I mean, when this happened, trust me, my mind was blown.
You must have been scared too, right? A little bit.
Yes, I was. I mean, it happened very naturally. I mean, I was sleeping just like any other night, and then I wake up. It was the bright light in the room that woke me up. And I looked down at my phone, and it says 3:33 a.m., which I thought was cool, you know. And mind you, at this point, I wasn't into the whole sequential numbers that our spiritual community is very much into. I wasn't even there yet. I hadn't met other people that had been doing what I was doing yet. So this was all very new. I thought it was cool, interesting. Okay, so then I get out of my bed and I go to the window and I open the blinds and I see the bright light, and it just gets brighter, and it is so bright that it burns my eyes, almost as if you're looking at the sun, and my body paralyzes, completely paralyzes, and from one moment to the next, I'm being moved through the wall, through the window, outside of my room, which is on top of the garage. So there's like a little landing, little rooftop there, and I mean, I see these out of the light, these gray shadows that kind of approach me, and of course, they are these incredibly tall, gray beings that have these tremendous eyes, and you just don't know how to put two and two together when you see such a thing. It's just very hard to. There's nothing like that in this world. You don't know if you should think of it as an insect or a creature or what it is. But your body, it goes into this terror mode, and this being approaches me and basically waves his hand in some way, and it just removes the fear out of my body completely. So I'm no longer in fear.
So they are completely controlling you.
Yes, they are. And they speak to you telepathically, and it's very minimal. It's just like he just said calm, and it's telepathic, and then your body goes calm. And then I'm being drawn into the craft. And as I'm walking into the craft, everything changes holographically around me, and it turns into this, green grass, blue sky type of thing. It looks like the setting, like a fake setting of something. And as they show me some things, like a obtuse building where I'm brought into, and I turn around and I see my aunt walking in front of me in her pajamas with two of these other grays. And then I go into panic mode again, and I'm like, what is she doing here? She's in her pajamas. And the interesting thing is that later, after all of this came out, after the regression and everything, she had experience that night as well, the exact same night, the exact same date in November.
And this was your aunt.
And this is my aunt, and my aunt is actually an experiencer as well. And she had had a dream about someone coming in, doing something to her, and the next day she ended up in the hospital. And the same thing happened again about a year ago now. Gosh, time flies. Recently, when I had another abduction experience over the past year. So, abduction it goes through your ancestral lineage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's genetic. If your mother is abducted or has contact experience, the grandmother does, it all has to do with your DNA. Your DNA is encoded in a way in which what is important, what these beings want, is the information. It's that genetic material in order to produce these hybrids that is being taken. And at that moment, trust me, I didn't know any of that yet. I mean, I was still new to all of this. But during that experience, I mean, they showed me a series of information. But the most incredible thing was the next day. So the time frame is this: 3:33 in the morning to 6:15, where I am on the side of my bed, upside down on the corner here. Literally, if this was the window and this was the bed, my bed was open. And how would I end up there on the side of my bed? So it was an absolutely conscious experience. And the most impactful thing about that was that the next Monday, this happened on a Friday, the weekend went by, I couldn't leave my house. I felt like I got hit by a truck. I was not well that weekend.
I mean, you probably felt like you were in the Twilight Zone.
Well, I mean, and the thing was that I was like, was that a dream? It was too real to be a dream. I mean, I couldn't even think back to what I did the Thursday. It was so impactful. It just overcame anything that I've ever experienced in my life. But yet, there's always that little doubt that's like, what just happened, and how can I define that experience? And so Monday, when I go see my first meditation client, I can see, I mean, I had so much nausea just coming close to her because I could feel her anxiety. She was feeling anxious. She had been going through some stuff, and she comes to me to meditate. And I'm feeling everything she's feeling. She has anxiety, she has stress, she has all kinds of things going on with her husband and her partner and all these things. And I'm just picking up everything, and I'm feeling it. And I'm like, I know that's not mine because I don't have any problems anywhere right now. And, it's like I didn't know what to do with that. So I barely got through that session. And to be honest, I mean, I couldn't leave my house for a week after that. It was so powerful. And it took me months to integrate this new ability to see the multidimensional body. I could see everything. I could see light colors from their body, the radiation of their aura, cords, attachments, everything that was in their space. So it really, it was like a veil had been ripped open. And to me, that was my proof about what had happened and that it was real. That was the only way.
So you're having this experience in 2013. Your whole entire life is just awakened by this mass information. And now you are tapping into psychic abilities that you never had before from this experience that happened with these grays that came and took you from your room and took you up on this craft. Now you're in this experience. It's taken you a couple months to kind of mainstream back in with, the community, maybe even your work and being connected to what you were doing. From that moment on, where did it lead you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a constant internal battle because I had met my partner at that time. And, the first thing that I did when I first met him was tell him what happened. And I just waited to see his reaction. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. It's very cool, So I was like, okay, maybe I don't sound so crazy. So we started a relationship. And of course, I was still doing my business, but I just couldn't go back to life the way it was already because I started to think.
How could you?
It's like, where did these children come from? How did they come from? Like, how were they born? Like, was I pregnant? And then I started to think back to my experiences. I'm like, yeah, I remember I have had some miscarriages, but I still didn't even know that was connected to this thing at that point. So I was thinking, I didn't have any children up until now. All I had was a couple miscarriages. So at what point did they take the children, or how did that happen? I mean, I didn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I mean, what would you do in those moments? Like, who do you reach to? Who do you talk to without sounding like you're crazy?
Right. And I started to do some research. I mean, I looked on the internet and I looked up hybridization and I found some things. I found Bridget Nielsen's information. She has a hybrid mother community. And, but for some reason, I couldn't find more. Maybe I wasn't looking up the right things. And I hear this a lot from people. And this is why I do what I do now, because you feel so alienated, so lost. I mean, you can't just go to your friend's house and have a conversation with them. What are they going to say? You go to a bookstore, you don't know who to talk to. You go to a temple, you go to a church. Where are you going to go to talk about these things? You just don't know what to do. So it then started this inner conflict for years until 2016. And the end of 2016, it was almost as if I had to make a choice. It was like, because we were thinking about settling down and getting married and having the kids. And they told me, don't you dare talk about this to anyone, because I was thinking to maybe start a blog and talk about it, or I was even thinking to do YouTube videos and just talk about it and see if anybody else had it experience. I didn't know what to do, but they told me, don't you dare go public. You're going to ruin your reputation. You're going to ruin the family name. What are we going to do?
Because, so much fear.
Yeah, and then my other business, which was becoming very well known, was also on the line, and they didn't want to have my name associated to both of them. So I couldn't talk about it. And I decided I didn't want to live like that anymore. And we ended our relationship, and it was time for me to make a change. And I went deep again into my meditation, into my practice, to really understand who I was and what I needed and what I thought needed to be true and spoken of. And I know that this was important, because if there are hybrid children and other women, which there are, that are experiencing this, why aren't we talking about? Why isn't it on the news? Why is it not Good Morning America? And we're not listening to these kinds of things, So funny enough, my mother was watching some regressions by Alba Weinman, and she sends me one. She's like, this is really interesting. You should check it out. Did you ever think about having a regression about your experience? And I said, no, I didn't. She's like, why don't you check it out? And from one day to the next, I don't know how it happened, but I ended up getting a session with Alba. She sent out her newsletter, and I ended up on a plane to Ohio. to do the first regression. So, I mean, looking back at my life and how things have happened over the past 3 years, you really understand that everything was really just meant to be. I mean, and you, Chardonnay, you and your sister, you've gone to some of our events.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's just mind blowing how things have developed.
I wasn't even supposed to be in Mount Shasta, and I ended up getting in. Like, it was just so beautifully orchestrated, just divinely yoked. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So it's amazing how that happens. And I think when you are in alignment, when you're searching for your truth, things fall into place. And you don't even have to try, and it doesn't come from fear. It comes from this authentic search for truth and for yourself. That's it. Very simple.
It is.
So that's what happened. And when I had the regression with Alba Wyman, I mean, my life changed.
So when you go in and you are having this first session with Alba, and she's going deeper and she's revealing all these truths, after you come out of the session, where are you in your discovery with yourself?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I love talking about this because I see a lot of people on Alba's support group that talk about this. And anyone that has gone through regression has this kind of internal conflict about what they just went through. And for me, I mean, it was really strong because the first regression, we talked about some really controversial stuff that we couldn't even put out on the full video. So it's heavily edited, that video that's out right now, which is Alba Wyman 133. You guys can check it out if you want. But in this regression, I'm being taken around a map of the world and the historical timeline and the origins of seeding of life on the planet. And basically, it's rewriting our entire understanding of history, of religion, of the origins of those things, and how how our reality is basically structured, our governmental systems, financial systems, everything, our education, our society. So, I mean, if you think about such a tremendous paradigm shift, I had been already questioning some of these things, but not even close to the level that I was being introduced to during this session. And also the names that I was saying, like the Nephilim, for example. I mean, I remember in the session I'm trying to find what I'm hearing, and I keep hearing Nephilim, but I think Nephilim sounds like some made-up word, so I'm saying any other name that may sound like an Egyptian name, but it was the Nephilim. Okay, and I didn't know anything about the Nephilim at that point. I hadn't read any book about anything of these things, like the Book of Enoch or any of these things were completely new to me. So I thought I was sat there and just made up stuff for about 2 hours,
I know. I felt that the first time I did. I get it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then Alba says, "Do you want to share it?" And I'm like, "Holy moly, do I want to share it?" I don't want to share it. I mean, I think I just blabbed out some things. So it was an internal. Honestly, it was a crisis that I went through because I had to revisit my belief system, and I had to understand that what I had actually seen was very much something that we are uncovering as a collective in our society. Okay, and then I started to do research on the things that I had been shown, and I mean, when we go back to Mesopotamia, the whole thing about Jordan and Petra during that year, the exact year that I was there, I'm looking at history books on what had happened there, and I'm understanding and researching and understanding how the different civilizations had come and gone there, and what was prevalent there, and the questions of the ancient archaeology that we're looking at, and how the question is, this cannot be man-made. There had to be some other external influence that was more powerful than our human influence, and those things never even crossed my mind before. So when I started to do the research, I mean, my mind was blown. But everything going from Jordan, Mesopotamia, up until our current presidency, looking at the lineages, at the genetic lineage of all of these very unique families that had manifested and created life on all our continents, it's all right there. It's all right there, and it's hidden in plain sight, is what I say, because I mean, I don't come from a research background, okay, but if I didn't sit there and dig and dig and dig into all of these historical papers, ancient texts, I mean, even our mainstream history has little glimpses of this stuff, but you just have to dive deeper into the information. You start to piece together a new understanding of our history. Okay, so I mean, it was incredible, and it was at that point where I knew that there was something that had to be talked about, because we're not just talking about history, we're talking about humans. How did humans come to be? Why are humans the way they are? Why are we living in this constant cyclical life where we're constantly being in a state of struggle, where we're in constant survival mode? And all of that has to do with the original understanding of life seating on this planet and what you are as a human. I mean, the human is the most powerful biotechnology, in other words, in this multiverse per se, because you are multidimensional, and your consciousness that is aware in this moment, in this physical body, has the ability of changing, shifting, and accessing incredible amounts of information which you don't even know yet, until you begin to do some inner work and find those roots, those aspects of yourself. And so I'd love to go into that a little bit in a minute, but I think what happened at that point was that my journey became very clear to me, and I had to just focus on talking about this and helping people understand why we're here, why women are being used for the hybridization program, and men, why men and men, women and men. Regression, this kind of hypnotherapy that Alba does, is very healing as well. I mean, there were some loose ends that I was coming into this session to heal. And I mean, I went through a lot of healing, and it unpacked even more abilities. And I think that every time that I got a regression, more things were activated. And it's interesting. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But when it comes to the multidimensional body, after the first regression, we went deep into the historical timeline of how genetically humans are made. In the second regression, we go even deeper. I go further into looking at the universe, the structure of the universe, how it relates to the human body. And so, because my question was, why are humans being utilized for the hybridization? What makes them unique? Is it just me that this is happening to? Or are we talking about thousands of people? Or are we talking about an entire race of humans that are actually being hybridized? And if that's the case, what does that say about what we hold in our genetic make? And so when I was able to see the multidimensional body, one of the interesting things that you can see is stagnant information in the body. You can see cords, and cords are energetic, etheric connections that are connecting, and they're created anytime that we are interacting with someone like me and you, Chardonnay, or me and the person downstairs at the desk. When we interact with someone, when we make eye contact or energetic interaction, we are creating an energetic cord. And so, if you think about it, how many people do you interact with in your life? I mean, there's hundreds of people, and so these cords are throwing back information. Now, what does that say? So, what came first? It's kind of like chicken or the egg. Like, did we come into these relationships and these interactions with random people, or even people that we know, based on just random experiences? Or are these experiences kind of predestined or pre-planned, where we meet people that we know or we're meant to meet? And so my question was, how is this reality structured in a way where the human as an organism is kind of connected with like-minded people at certain times? Right before we're talking about the podcast right now, we're talking about how everything is flowing and working as it should. And right then and there, it really helps us understand how, based on our vibrational frequency, based on the intention of our experience and what we're doing, what we're creating, we are having an entire change of our vibrational frequency as an overall organism. And that creates a ripple effect. Okay, we were introduced to this concept with The Secret, and the whole concept of, manifestation, but we didn't really understand the work, like the back work of that, how it really worked, how everything kind of, went into place in order to make that happen. And I think when you realize and when you learn about your multidimensional body and what you are, the information that you hold, how the dynamic between you and other living organisms are being interfaced and created, you then begin to understand how powerful you are as a creator, as a manifester. Your emotions matter, your intentions matter, your fears matter. All of these things are creating your experience, but not just the experience. They are defining who you're going to interrelate with, who you're going to connect with, who you're going to meet next, how you're going to experience a thing. So, I mean, and a lot of these things can seem pretty woo-woo for some people, but there is a science, there is a structure and a function to each and every one of these things in us and from us. So the more that we begin to learn how to become aware of the human body inside out, our emotions, our expressions, we can then learn how to direct what we are co-creating consciously. Okay, and so in all of these regressions, for me, it was this incredible eye-opening experience, downloads of how the human is structured and how it's getting the information from its infinite source, which we are. We are this infinite consciousness. We are this intelligence, and awareness is kind of like the key. When we become aware of ourselves as consciousness, that's when things start to get magical. That's when the experience starts to become fun, because you start to experience the synchronicities. You're in alignment with a whole different range of things that are possible for you. And you're kind of out of that survival mode, which is what we're used to being, which we get up in the morning and we're doing the Groundhog Day. We're going to work, we're doing this, we're doing that. We don't question our bodies, we don't question our emotions, we don't question our experiences. And so that is a deep disconnect from yourself as an organism, as a conscious being. And that kind of a cycle of life is just going to create more chaos and more experiences from that perspective. And that perspective would be, you're in constant survival mode. So when we're in survival mode, we're coming from a place of fear, So it's really important to understand and be able to differentiate the laws of the universe, because everything is functioning and is created from this basis. The basis of creation is the divine feminine, the divine masculine. You have a man and a woman, you put them together, they create a child. And from that perspective, that's how all creation is done. That's how we create life in this dimension. Animals do it, plants also function in that way. There must be, even if it's asexual, it has that feminine and masculine chemistry in order to create that life.
Beautifully said.
So from that perspective, like, we must always understand that to create, there has to be a balance. And so this balance has to be manifested within the physical body, within ourselves. It not just an external expression. The body, for example, the right side of the body is the masculine, the left side of the body is the feminine. And this is kind of shown, this design, inherent design as part of our organism, is shown down to the very molecular level. Okay, even every cell, every molecule of the body is oscillating, and it oscillates because it has that positive, like a battery, like a battery and like a motor. When a motor is oscillating, it creates that kind of electromagnetic field around it. The human body is like that down to the cellular molecular level. The human body has its own magnetic field. It has its own aura field. Every organism around, even the heart, and this, the Heart Math Institute did a whole test on this, how the heart has its own magnetic field. And it's the same for every organ Every organ will have a different vibrational frequency. The human body has a certain vibrational frequency, a certain signature. Living things, this structure will have its own vibrational signature, and the planet Earth and all the planets and everything in this universe is functioning in this same way, because that is the law of creation. Okay, so from that perspective, we begin to understand that if we can look at life from the perspective that everything must be created from balance, from the balance of feminine, masculine, positive, and negative, even our own emotions and our expressions of those emotions will come into question. And so this is where my work comes into play, because what I do with people is I help take them back to the root cause of blockages. Blockages occur when we have traumatic experiences. And what I mean by trauma, it doesn't have to be a really horrendous event that happened to you, a car accident, a family issue that happened. I mean, I'm talking about every moment throughout your day that at any time you might feel even just a little bit confused or disoriented, or feeling overwhelmed, helpless, anytime that you may feel in a state of fear. Your perspective is coming from one place. It comes from fear, from this place. It's an imbalance. But you are missing the other half. What about the other perspective? What if you were to look at the same experience from a positive perspective, for example, or maybe even just a neutral perspective? There's a lot of information that you're missing there that you can take a look at in any experience. And so in order for us to heal, we have to question what is true in our lives. A lot of us, we live our lives running the same story of ourselves, all the experiences that happened to us, the trauma, our father did this, our mother did this, or there was no mother, there was no father, and so we became this way, and so we have these jobs, and so we did this, or we failed at this. And so we create an identity for us based on all of these experiences that happened to us. But then, is that really true? Nobody can take away those experiences from you. Nobody can deny the pain that has been created from those experiences. But is that story and is that pain serving you to evolve, to change from there, to become something better, to heal from those experiences? So the question is, how can we heal from all of that trauma? And the way to do that is to go back, revisit those experiences, and become very, very, look at it from a neutral perspective, so that you can begin to look at some things that maybe you have missed. Because we have a very one-sided way of looking at things. We look at things through tunnel vision often, and oftentimes it's only from our singular perspective. But if we can broaden that image, that perspective, you begin to take into consideration the other people that are playing roles in your experiences, like your mother. Where was your mother? Did your mother go through a lot of trauma? Did she experience abuse? Does she even know truly how to provide love or a safe, loving environment for herself, much less you as a child, growing up? So if you begin to look at those things, you begin to look at the truth. The truth is the understanding and awareness of everything around you, of everything that is occurring in those experiences. And a lot of us, we tend to not want to look at truth, either because it's too sad, too fearful, too traumatic, too painful to look at. But awakening and the spiritual journey, it's a painful journey. That's one thing that we have to start to understand, that spirituality, it's not this incredible la la land where we're all just jumping around and being happy, lovey-dovey, love and light.
Singing and dancing under rainbows.
Exactly. It's absolutely not like that. I mean, spiritual awakening is a lot of work, and it takes dedication, and it takes a really deep awareness and love of the self to be able to pull yourself out of those deep, dark places and really come into who you are without any limitation, without any fear, and that it takes dedication, it takes time. So, little by little we learn, and there isn't a lot of help out there or support systems for us that are coming out in this spiritual work. I mean, we hear the end product, but the journey sometimes, we don't always have guidance through that. So I think it's really important that not only do we ourselves look for help, but we learn what we need from the inside by meditating, by becoming aware of our needs first. Okay, and in the spiritual community, we would like to create a community. We want to connect with other people, but ultimately the spiritual work is very much, it's a very individual thing. You can't really just have tea time and just talk about your inner traumas and all these things that you're going through.
It's very personalized.
It is very personalized. So my advice to all you spiritual warriors out there that are just coming into your highest expression, please don't lose sight and understand that what you're battling, you're deconstructing an illusion per se, okay? And the reason why I call it an illusion is because we're not really seeing the whole truth of all the things that we've experienced. When we do see the truth, we begin to tap into something that is so powerful, and it's called compassion. And the compassion of looking at other people's suffering helps us be compassionate about our own suffering. And then we decide, hey, maybe I don't need to be constantly suffering all the time. Maybe I can support myself, nurture myself, be this loving mother and father that I always needed and wanted, and come into this creator God self that I am meant to be. The other side of it is like when you get into your highest expression, you come into this instant state of manifestation. It's like all these things just open up as needed. So for me, the journey is very simple. Like, I'm in alignment with what I need to do. I meet the people I need to meet. I work with the people I need to work with, and that's it. It's very simple. Anytime there's chaos or anything that goes out of alignment, it's just not meant to be, and that's just how we work with in the universe. And it's been really exciting. I mean, I've been invited to a lot of great conferences. This year I'll be speaking at several places. The next conference I'll be speaking at is UFO Con here in San Francisco Bay Area, actually. So hopefully you'll come for it.
Oh gosh, that would be awesome. My sister would be like all over it. Yeah, right?
Yeah, that would be really fun. And I'll be working on some other projects. I'll be at the Human Origins Conference in April. We're going to do a retreat in March, of course, with Alba Wyman in Peru. So
I wish I was coming to that. Let me tell you, my husband and I are actually going to finally take a really deserving anniversary break, and it fell around that same time. So I was like, and we totally were thinking about going, and we just, we're making that commitment to each other that we want to just be lost in each other, and we're going to throw our cell phones away. We're shutting off the world, and just so we can just become one again, because it's so important to have that. It really does.
Congratulations. I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
you're doing that. So we won't see you there, but we'll see you at another conference and another group that we're doing. And so, so a lot of really exciting things. I'll be in Europe also in the summertime, in France and England in the summertime. And those are going to be on my website if you want to check them out.
If somebody wants to get plugged in with you and book a session with you, you are located in Northern California, but where in Northern California, and do they have other options to plug in and maybe do Skype or Zoom? How does that all come to be?
I work internationally, so literally I have clients from all over the world that I work with, and I work through Skype or Zoom. So please connect with me online. You guys can check me out. My calendar is on my website. If you're in the Bay Area, or if you plan to come to the Bay Area, I am available Fridays at the East West Bookstore. We actually did an amazing little partnership, and we've been doing some awesome stuff. We have some exciting stuff coming up for this year also there. So I'm really excited to talk about that. It's eastwestbookstore.org. So you guys can book your session through there, and it's on site. I meet you in person, and it's a 2-hour session, and it's really fun. So so I'm happy to serve. And also when I travel, I really try to fit in as many people as I can when I travel. So if you're in one of the locations that I'm going to, reach out to me, email me, and let me know, and I'm happy to fit you in if I can make it work.
This is so amazing. Okay, so that everyone really understands, what is your website?
BayAreaMeditation.com.
Okay.
So you can book sessions with me. Also, GeraldineOrozco.com. And if you are a hybrid parent that is looking for support and to learn more about what's happening, you can visit hybridmother.com. And I have a support there, monthly support group. Right now it's monthly. I tried to do it bi-monthly, but I'm traveling a lot. So it's monthly right now. So join the meetup. And then we do it, it's a private call that we do on Zoom that you can join. So,
wow, that's
yeah.
awesome. What a great way of getting plugins
Yeah.
with you. And then they can get a lot of information from your website,
Yeah.
and they also, when they get on that website, they can also find you in other ways. What's a couple other ways where we can find you and watch you?
You guys can check out my YouTube channel, Geraldine Orozco. And I have a lot of awesome content on there, a lot of meditation videos and practices and techniques. And I go really deep into the whys and how of those techniques on there, so you guys can check that out. I was doing a 2020 meditation challenge at the beginning of the year, but I got very busy. I'll be starting that again soon, so watch out for that. Do sign up for that. I'm also on Instagram at Bay Area Meditation or Geraldine Orozco, and Twitter, same thing. So reach out to me whichever way you can. I'd love to connect with you, want to hear about your journey and see what I can do to support in any way I can.
Oh, and it's such beautiful work that you do, because when I was watching you on YouTube recently again, and it's just so you understand, you have such an amazing presence. You're so soft on the ears. You really are. You are so passionate of what you do with your work, and I found myself like getting closer and closer and closer to watching you, because I was so drawn in. You're humble in what you do with your work, but I think it's important for someone to stand before another person and honor them for what they do and their dedication work, because it is powerful what you're doing. I mean, you're making radical transformation in people's lives. I mean, you're taking the unknown and becoming truth, and you're walking your true story and giving the people the power to have their own true stories and to heal and to profoundly heal, that they're not defined by all of this past trauma and generational pain. And I really love that you spoke about womb pain.
Yes.
That is a big one.
Yeah.
Because even for me and my accountability in my life, there, being very young, being a young mother, I had a lot of trauma. And I was, when I was pregnant with my daughter, there was a lot of things that I was going through that passed through her. And when I looked back in her childhood, she had so many characteristics and expressions of that pain and that trauma that was created from my womb. So that was, really amazing. And that's why I was so glad that, when I had my intervention in my life, that I was like, oh girl, it's time to put those big barrel panties on and do your work, because do you want your daughter to continue the vicious cycle?
Right. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, do we want to pass on all that pain and suffering that we went through? No, we don't. So it's really important. And thank you so much for becoming aware of that, Chardonnay, because sometimes it takes people a lifetime to become aware of how they affected, your child through your own trauma. But the thing is, like, we want to educate people at an early age, before they even have the children, so that we start to create conscious families. That's the thing. And so that's the work that I'm actually getting really passionate about this year, is working with children and the next generation, so that when they come out and they're ready to have their families, they understand how everything is so important, what you're eating, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. We got to take accountability for that on such a deep level. So kudos to you for recognizing that.
Well, thank you, and kudos straight back to you, you amazing goddess warrior of this earth, of what you're proclaiming and pioneering and all your soul work. It's just absolutely amazing. When I end each show, it's so important for me to give the platform right back to the guest speaker. And is there anything that you can share with the listeners today to kind of encourage them, to really how to step out of their own way and to reach deeper within themselves? Is there any love message that you can give, an encouragement or inspiration to the listeners today to just kind of like take that small leap?
You have 100 years, maybe, of this life. And in that time, what matters the most is the soul evolution, the journey of your spirit and your soul. So everything that you're experiencing right now, don't forget the ultimate way of evolution and expansion is to come back to source, to come back to that one. Just the way a white light is fragmented through a prism to create different colors, you're going to take all those colors back and you're going to return back to that white light. That's your job in this life. So if you can reintegrate all of those experiences that you've had and accept them, never reject yourself for anything that you've done, forgive yourself for anything that you regret doing, and let go of all of the things that you think are judgmental or shameful of you. That's one of the biggest things that I can tell you. Love yourself, accept yourself, your light and your dark. And when you're able to do that, you don't know how much you're just going to expand and blow up and come into this incredible creator. And that's what I want to see. That's what we want to see for this world. And that's what I say. Love yourself, 100%. That's it.
Geraldine, thank you so much. I'm like with tears in my eyes right now closing out the show, because you are really speaking the truth of what needs to be shaken and rattled in all of us today, so that we can have these amazing, profound awakenings for ourselves, and that we can change and shift cycles and in such a beautiful pattern of true light, and really being our authentic selves for this lifetime and all the next lifetimes. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, Chardonnay. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey there, spiritual warriors. Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode. What a captivating show today was with our guest speaker, Geraldine. During the interview, my entire body was electric with energy. There was times I felt like I was traveling through different dimensions, seeing everything in a new light. I was deeply captured by Geraldine's dedication to bring spiritual healing to people all over the world, helping each human being deconstruct all the matrix and the ancestral programming that is encoded into our DNA, and where she sheds the light on how to deprogram those traumas and identify the blockages so that we can move forward and come into our highest expressions of ourselves. And can we please talk about her incredible courage to share her ET encounter? Even when loved ones warned her not to speak out about this experience, she chose not to give into fear and go deeper and uncover the truth of her downloads from her abductions. Geraldine, we celebrate you for standing in your power and creating a legacy that brings truth and healing. If you are interested in booking an appointment with Geraldine, please visit her website at bayareameditation.com. You will see several plugins to learn more about services and her social media platforms. And if you are a hybrid parent looking for more support, please visit hybridmother.com. Thank you so much for choosing Forever Worthy to be your podcast show today. Don't forget to rate and show your love on Apple Podcast. And if you are interested in being a guest speaker and sharing your personal life story, please send an email to youareforeverworthy@gmail.com. Stay tuned for more episodes coming up, and do me a favor, hit that share button.